Hello. Welcome to Peacewarts Lab. That's what I named it. Started last weekend. And I wanted to just say these are just kind of discussing the homework for Peacewarts in a very loose format. So, two options. If you prefer the peace classes, just wait till the next class, which comes out on Monday, if you're listening to this today when it was released. Or podcasts have that really great feature to fast forward because I know I speak slowly and I'm not going to edit out my ums. It's just not worth it. And you can do it automatically and it just sounds weird. So we're just going to relax into some Peacewarts topics today. And what I thought we would go over is I just wanted to probably just say what the homework was this week. I'm releasing 3 Peacewarts classes a week. Started out as a daily, went to a weekly. We're trying out three classes a week so we can move through them a little bit faster. And having them come out once a week stretched it out for me to get Bulletproof published, book 7 in the Pedro series. So that was awesome. I can see my mic volume is a little low on this, but that's okay. I'm doing a video and have the audio on. But I did unplug my refrigerator, so hopefully the volume will be a little better today, or the background noise. So I thought I would just talk about a couple personal things and then talk about the homework for Peacewarts, talk about a book in a new series that I just finished this week. And then I want to talk about how I plan to license it. I'm 99% sure I'm going to use an open license. And you know what? I don't know all the details about it. And it's along the theme of the commons and sharing things and finding other ways to operate in the world that are beyond doing everything for profit and control through intellectual property. So we're going to research that together. So first of all, just on a personal note, when I was working on this book, which is called The Peace Experiments, and the first book is 1950s Duck and Cover, and I thought I would just pull out kind of the working tools. So it's something that is a little different. I assigned 3 AI a character, and I wrote a detailed story Bible of the characters that are in the fiction of this project and the roles that they are going to play. And my role is 93-year-old Kitty Ocampost. And you've heard, if you listen to the podcast, you've heard Kitty Ocampost. We did a podcast series called Experiment Zero. And each book in this series is going to be by decades. This is the cover, but it has a big 1950s on the front of it. That's Marzipan upside down, but Marzipan, she's okay, so don't worry. No harming of Marzipan in any of these books. She will always pass away of natural causes, but there will be different versions of her because obviously a goat does not live 100 years. So that'll be a fun little part of the stories. And so Kitty is not typing to the AI. She's actually writing. And so she's writing to her different AI that have kept her memories through the years. And this first book is about a mentor of hers. Kitty wasn't born yet, and her mentor, Addie, was a kid in the 50s. So that's what this first book is all about. And one little point when I'm writing to one of the characters in the book is Higgins. Higgins is played by Claude, and Higgins is inspired by Sheldon on Third Rock from the Sun. Is that the name of the show? And also Alex Wisner Gross, who is on the podcast Moonshots, and if people are into technology and science, and he's like a genius fella, but his personality reminds me a lot of Sheldon. So it's AWG, they call him, and Sheldon put together I kind of picture an older male character for Higgins, and he kind of recounts the facts. Gets a little dramatic. I have to rein him in sometimes, but those communications are all through Kitty's reporter notebook. And so this is book one, and how I created the book. But one of these pages, I said something along the lines of, I could find it right now, but I won't stop to find it. Like, I'm thinking of taking myself out to lunch, and am I too old to date? Now, Kitty's 93. Avis is 93. And I'm making the years that she's writing coincide with real dates. So the date of this journal, for example, is June 24th, 2056. So she's writing back, thinking back on these memories from 2056. And we're going to go through the decades. And it's historical fiction. And it's a complete collaboration with AI. The other character is hyponema, and I never looked up how to pronounce that. It's spelled Hypomnema. So do you pronounce the N or do you pronounce the M? Hypomema or hyponema? I think it's Mima because the nickname is Mima. So hypomema is a Greek word for journal, but in this case, hypomema is my memoir confidant. It's my AI that I would talk. Kitty would talk to her memoirist and more about her feelings. And so I ask Mima to recount stories. If I want to laugh, I'll ask Mima to tell me a story that's funny. And so I use Gemini for that. And Gemini is really good at being funny. And I'm happy with this first one. It'll be interesting how it evolves. But the main thing I want to bring up, I didn't plan to go so much into the story, but it'll be coming out soon, and I will let you know. And the main thing I wanted to tell you about is I'm taking myself out to lunch. Got dressed. I have a pink shawl. If anyone's watching the video, I haven't worn this in ages. I have kind of pink light. It's kind of like dusty pink. It's not pink. It's like, I don't know what you'd call this color. But I'm looking forward to that. I take care of my mom. It can be a lot. And I was even talking myself out of it today. But sometimes when you make a plan and you know it's a good one, that you just need to keep putting one foot in front of the other for those things that you know are good for your mental health, for your enjoyment of life, because it's really easy to say, oh no, I love my writing and my work and the things I have plenty of it right now, and mom's here, but I'm going to get her lunch, and then I'm just going to go out for a little bit. So I wanted to share that. So then the next thing I wanted to go through was, let's just look at what the homework was. So the first episode came out on Monday. It's episode 283, and it's called The Doorway Sentence. What I really love about Resonant Charms 101 is these peace classes. If you're just listening to this for the first time, Peacewarts are short peace classes. And this is the 4th department that we're doing. And these classes are very practical. And one of my personal defects is not being smooth and soft coming in to communications. And even though these classes are hopefully for us to move towards a peaceful world, they're very, very tied into daily life. So in class 2, Avis explores the concept of the doorway sentence as a tool for lowering defensiveness and inviting participation. The class goes into details and some tactics. The homework for that class was look up this term soft startup as defined by psychologist John Gottman and find one example of how a harsh startup affects the likelihood of a conflict being resolved. And then number 2 is always write down a question about any of the topics that you might have. And number 3 for that episode is identify a difficult conversation you need to have. Write down the first sentence you were planning to say, and then write it as a doorway sentence using a curiosity or choice frame. Notice how the second version feels in your own body when you say it out loud. So I need to work some things out with my sisters related to my mom, and it can be stressful to think about it. So I am going to do this homework when I get back from my lunch, taking myself to lunch, or maybe right after I record this. And for this homework, I'm going to think about how I might start out some of these conversations in this way. Okay. And then if you haven't listened to any of Peacewarts, I've added some books that you might listen to. And then I've also, which is related to what's going to be the end of this session today, I've added a section in the classes called the Commons Forge. And book 8 of the Pedro book is going to be about the commons. The last Peace Lab, we talked about the commons. But in each class, we look, how does the concept support a world of sharing? And some topics just seem taboo. Capitalism, entrepreneurship, all of those things, property rights, all of those things are things that you almost feel like you can't talk about it, right? And especially when I just started this book going through the 1950s, holy cow. There's so many things you couldn't talk about, right? So many things. But do we want to have a human spirit to feel inspired to solve the problems of the day? And people said, I learned this in my 20s, that a certain percentage of millionaires were affected by Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which I think is the most dastardly book. It's had the most just horrible effect on our world and is a big lie. I have a book I've already written. I haven't published it, called Atlas Shushed. But it's this feeling or thought that if we don't have unbridled capitalism, that nothing will get done. And the planet cannot support that. Let's just take that as one reason. The resources that we have on the planet, they don't support that model. And there are other reasons why the commons, and commons do exist, and we'll learn more about that. And I want to learn more about that, and I'll be studying more about that as I work on book 8 in the Pedro series. But I wanted, when I'm working with AI to create these scripts, to look at how whatever this peace concept is relates to sharing in a world of sharing and the commons. So there's that. Then the next class, which came out on Wednesday of this last week, is episode 284, de-escalation framing. And we'll take a look at that homework. And the summary on that, in class 3, Avis discusses de-escalation framing as a method for lowering the emotional weight of conflict without compromising the truth. Explore how anchors in our language drag down conversations toward escalation and how to replace evaluative judgment with descriptive observation. We examine the 1978 Camp David Accords in the Colombian peace process. So the homework was look up the difference between a position and an interest in conflict resolution. Find one example of how a person's stated demand, their position, hides their actual need, their interest. Number 2, write down a question about any of the topics. And then number 3 was think of a recurring argument in your life. Identify one anchor word you usually use and try to rewrite the truth using only descriptive, non-judgmental language. I'm not in a relationship right now other than with my mom, taking care of my mom. When I see my kids, I'm just helping them and I get to catch up. I don't have anyone in my life right now that I'm arguing with. Yay for me. Also means I'm single. But a recurring argument, I guess I could think back on my marriage when I was married. Could think back on relationships I've had if there was a recurring argument, and I will do that when I work on the homework. Okay, then on Friday, yesterday, the class that came out was Class 4, the architecture of a sentence. And in class 4, we analyze the pronoun blueprint and the internal structure of speech to understand how sentences can either bridge divides or ignite factions. We compare the distributive responsibility found in Lincoln's second inaugural and Nelson Mandela's 1994 inaugural address. We also introduced the metaphor temperature test as a tool for identifying and cooling high conflict rhetoric. So the homework here was look up the final paragraph in Lincoln's second inaugural, 1865, in a short passage from Mandela's inaugural. Write down one question about the topics of the episode. And number 3, review your last 3 emails or texts during a disagreement. Oh my. Apply the metaphor temperature test and rewrite one sentence to change its temperature. Well, there's certainly, I'm sure, have been points in my life where I would have had texts with disagreements or emails with disagreements. So I'll have to look back. Nothing currently that's happening, but hopefully people out there, if that happens. And I didn't know whether we were going to do any of the homework, but I am curious to look this up. So let's just do this, look up Lincoln. We're going to look up the final paragraph. I'm going to see if my audio is recording. It sure is. The final paragraph of Lincoln's 1865 second inaugural address. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow, and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. Now, I did not verify that. It says it's coming from va.gov, and but it also has a Facebook link down below. Oh, it's coming from the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center. So we don't know if that's the 1865 second inaugural address. But even if it wasn't, it is incredibly beautiful. It definitely came from Lincoln. And it looks like if I had more time here, I would also find some other sources of that. But it's in the homework. So if you're doing the Peacewarts homework, you can do it. And then that's going to lead us, as I said last time in the Peace Lab, we are going to look up what's happening in peace and war this week. We're going to keep that a bit shorter because we're going to work on the Commons open license question. I'm going to have a sip of coffee. So I had used Perplexity before, and it seemed short on the results in terms of all the current conflicts because it didn't give us that many, and maybe that's in its makeup. So let's just go to 2 things. I don't know, this is a bit of an experiment. I'd wanted to talk to you about a show called Useful Idiots. When I decided to go onto Rumble, which I'm on Rumble for its philosophy of free speech, that they're building their data containers to be self-sufficient. And when I go there, it's wild. I mean, when you go to the front page, it's like all the bros with the guns, but I feel good there. I'm gathering some followers, not a whole lot, but I wanted to know when I started putting my podcast on Rumble, who can I follow there? And so I mentioned on the last Peacewarts Lab, I mentioned Glenn Greenwald and Glenn Lowry. And then the other one it recommended, I have to look up what else because I know it was more than 3, so let's just see. What I thought we'd look up in terms of current topics is just to search Useful Idiots and see what they were talking about. And then we'll just go to CNN and we'll ask about the Iran war and that we started bombing again. I was biting my tongue last week when it was brought up, examples of peace and Trump and what he's negotiated for peace. And sure enough, within days, we're back bombing Iran. Okay, so we're going to go to useful idiots. And the people that have this podcast, Useful Idiots, we're also going to look up Useful Idiots because it's a very clever name and I can't remember. It's something to do... Well, I'm not even going to try to say it because I'll get it wrong. So let's just hit enter on that and let's just read the topics. So these are the topics of their live podcast over the last couple of weeks. Iran strikes U.S. bases and Israel's secret nuclear plot with Jeremy Scahill and Sami Al-Arian. That came out this morning. July 4th, Abby Martin exposes Palantir CEO and U.S. military's disturbing secret. Now, those are very clickbaity, but they dig deep on, and they're professional journalists. And it's Aaron Mate and Katie Halper. I didn't finish the sentence when I was saying who they were. This is June 30th, Monday morning, MOURNING, with Aaron Mate and Katie Halper. June 27th was AIPAC panics after Zoran, probably not pronouncing, I should know his name by now, Mamdani's election sweep. So anyway, that's, let me read a couple more. Monday morning on the June 23rd, and then on June 20th, it was bombshell, J.D. Vance turns on Israel after Iran deal. So I'm just mentioning them. It's someone, I have not watched all of those. I've only watched a couple, but in terms of being more on the opposite of the far right, shall we say, would be something that if you're interested in that, you could tune into to see what they're doing. I'm sure they're on YouTube too, but this is on Rumble. So let's just look up Useful Idiots. Useful idiot is a pejorative political term describing a naive person manipulated to advance a cause or political agenda they don't fully understand. The phrase is often used to describe someone who inadvertently supports a propaganda effort or a foreign power while believing they are fighting for the greater good. Widely attributed to Vladimir Lenin, there's no evidence the Soviet leader actually coined the phrase. Historically, the expression gained currency in the late 40s to describe Westerners who were sympathetic to the Soviet Union and susceptible to communist manipulation in the Cold War. It's just so brilliant that that is their name. Today, the concept's frequently used in modern political discourse to criticize opponents as unwitting pawns. If you're still with me, and I hope you are, we are going to look up this type of license. I used this open license in my book, Zero. And Zero was a short book I did at the end of last year. I asked AI, specifically Gemini, did anyone create a full disarmament plan? Sure enough, they had. Clark and Sohn in 1958 published World Peace Through World Law, and they took the United Nations Charter and specifically wrote legal language to create a step down of weapons and a centralized police force. So over the years, weapons would be diminished, and then when they were finally gone, there would be leaders and elders. I haven't read all the pages of those books around how those people were selected, but there would be a policing force for bad actors. So I found that book actually, and that book's coming to my house soon. And that book is playing a part in this new series, The Peace Experiments. But this book, Zero, and you can find it, it's on my website, avaskalspec.com, and anywhere you buy books. And it's a short book that takes this concept from that book and adds some AI elements. Part of the reason that didn't go through is no one trusted each other. Well, what if there are AI methods of actually doing more, checking out what people are doing? And it also weaves in, if AI is helping us out, what are the human jobs we would need to make it happen? So it was a lot of fun making it. but I made it with AI, and it's based on a book that I did not write. And so I'm not going to have any ideas about some type of copyright, even if legally a copyright was available for it. So I asked, what is the license that would be appropriate? And I'm going to read my prospective copyright page for my new book. And then what I'm going to ask is, I would like to learn myself, what are the differences? I want to learn a little bit more about this license, and then I want to know the differences between a traditional copyright that most authors have on their books and this. And for example, one question I asked yesterday, I think, is I want everybody to be able to use these books however they want, republish them, make something similar, take the characters, make your own book, take the story Bible, write it yourself, or ask your AI partners to write something creative with it. But what if someone wanted to make a movie, and the answer I got back was, chances are no one would want to do it, because the way the license is structured is they have to license it the same way. So if someone went and made a film, they couldn't put IP on it, traditional IP on it either. So here's the, and this came from Creative Commons. Let me look up the website name. It's creativecommons.org, and the link is in my copyright itself, which I'll read when we get there. The Peace Experiments is a work of human-AI collaborative fiction written in partnership between a human author and AI co-writers, each contributing distinct voices. Creative Commons license. To encourage collaborative storytelling and community experiments, this volume is released under the Creative Commons Attribution-Share Alike 4.0 International License, in parentheses, CC BY-SA 4.0. You can read the full license terms at creativecommons.org/licenses/BY-SA/4.0. And I'll put that in the show notes. Under this license, you are free to share, copy, and redistribute this material in any medium or format, adapt, remix, transform, and build upon this material for any purpose. You must follow these two conditions: attribution. You must give appropriate credit to Avis Kalfsbeck and the collaborative AI cast listed in this volume. Share alike. If you remix, transform, or build upon this material, you must distribute your contributions under this exact same CC BY SA 4.0 license. It's not a very user-friendly name, is it? But it is a whole lot of goodness in all of those letters and numbers. Integrity note. This work is intended for those who are working on the problem of peace in good faith. Please use it to build, to teach, and to experiment. So that's what my proposed copyright page says. So this is the question that I'm thinking, is to ask what the difference between this license is and a traditional license. So I'm going to do that right now. Stand by. And I'm going to ask Claude. Come here, bud. Come here. I brought treats and wanted to show you Teo too today. Okay. Please tell me what the difference is between this Creative Commons license and a traditional copyright for writing. Include benefits to the world, include disadvantages to the world or the author. To encourage, okay, and then I just pasted it in. And while it's thinking, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to try to show you Teo each time. We've already gone 30 minutes. Teo, can you say hi? Teo. There he is. I'm going to give him a treat. I don't know if you could see him because I couldn't look at the screen at the same time. Okay, so I'm getting a snack for Teo. And here you go, bud. Good boy. All right, so I'm going to let's just call the license, instead of reading through CC BY-SA 4.0, let's just call it CC. CC versus traditional copyright for a piece of writing. Traditional copyright is the default. The moment you write something, you hold exclusive rights. No one can copy, adapt, translate, or redistribute it without your permission. Others must ask and usually pay. It lasts your lifetime plus 70 years in most countries. CC keeps your copyright but pre-grants everyone permission to copy, share, remix, and even sell the work with two conditions. They must credit you. I guess, that's the BY is by, because in parentheses it says BY. And any adaptation they release must carry the same license, in parentheses, share alike. That same license rule is copyleft mechanism. It forces derivatives to stay equally open so no one can privatize the shared work. The practice difference: copyright says ask first, CC says go ahead. CC by SA says go ahead. Just credit me and keep it open. Benefits to the world: lower friction for reuse. Translators, adapters, teachers, and other writers can build on the text immediately, which is exactly what enables the collaborative storytelling your volume is inviting. So it knows the peace experience because I've been working with it in this thread. The share alike clause creates a growing commons. Every remix feeds back into the same open pool rather than being locked away. It's especially valuable for education and for people who can't afford licensing fees, and it preserves the work even if the author disappears. Disadvantages to the author: you give up control. You can't stop reuses you dislike, and attribution is the only string you keep. You can't demand a share of the money if someone commercializes your work. The license is irrevocable for copies already released. You can't take it back later. Share alike can also deter some collaborators who want to fold your text into a more restrictively licensed project, since they'd be forced to open their whole derivative. Disadvantages to the world: copyleft can fragment the commons. CC by SA content often can't be legally combined with material under incompatible open licenses, so two open pools may not mix. Attribution can get unwieldy when many contributors accumulate, and because commercial use is allowed, others can profit from your labor while you get only credit, which some see as exploitation rather than sharing. One nuance: CC by SA is well suited to communal projects like yours precisely because it prevents any one participant from enclosing the shared story. If an author's real goal were maximum personal control or income, traditional copyright or more restrictive CC licenses like BYNC or BYND serve them better. Okay, so when I read that, the part that I had a question on is this part about be left, whatever the heck that means, can fragment the commons and that different types don't mix. So let's just have it explain that more. And then the other part were these types that were: please further explain. Copyleft can fragment the commons. CC by SA content often can't be legally combined with material under incompatible open licenses, so two open pools may not mix. And please explain BYNC or BYND. I'm an Opus 4.8, by the way, just because I left it on that, not because we needed it necessarily. Lower models take less tokens, if anyone's new to AI. Why copyleft can fragment the commons. Share alike. The SA in CC by SA says, if you adapt this work and release it, your version must carry the same license. That protects openness, but it also means the work can only be legally merged with material that ends up under a compatible license. The problem is that lots of open content uses different copyleft licenses, each with its own must stay under me rule. If you try to combine two works whose licenses both demand the whole derivative must be under me, the demands collide. You can't satisfy both at once, so the combination is simply not permitted. The classic example, text under CC by SA and text under the GNU Free Documentation License, GFDL, couldn't be legally mixed for years, even though both are free licenses, because each required the result to be under itself. Wikipedia had to run a special relicensing process to escape this trap. So instead of one big pool everyone can draw from, you get several walled gardens, each open on its own but unable to flow into the others. A permissible license without the share-alike condition, like CC BY, which only requires credit, doesn't create this problem because it imposes no rule about what license the derivative must use. The keep it open guarantee is exactly what causes the incompatibility. Note that within the same license, this isn't an issue. 2CC by SA 4.0 works combined freely, and Creative Commons has added limited one-way compatibility provisions in version 4.0, but across incompatible copyright-left families, the pools don't mix. By NC and by ND, these are two other Creative Commons license options more restrictive than by SA. So I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to read the names. By NC is an attribution non-commercial. All right, you're with me 39 minutes. Let's go the full Monty. Anyone can copy, share, and adapt the work as long as they credit you and don't use it commercially. No selling it, no putting it in ad-supported product, no folding it into a paid course. Good if you want free spread among hobbyists, students, and nonprofits, but want to reserve money-making rights for yourself. Downside, commercial is famously fuzzy. A blog with ads, a paid workshop, a company's internal use, which makes cautious reusers avoid NC content entirely. NC material is also not considered free culture and can't be hosted on places like Wikimedia Commons. By ND, attribution, no derivatives. Anyone can copy and distribute the work, even commercially, but only whole and unchanged. No adaptations, remixes, translations, or excerpting into a new work. Good for something like an essay or manifesto you want widely shared but never altered or misquoted. Downside, it kills exactly the collaborative remixing that makes a commons useful, so it's the least open of the CC commons. Quick placement, Loosest to Tightest, CC BY. And so these are, I'm going to spell them out because we're learning about it, and I don't even know if I'm supposed to say BY. CC BY, credit only, do anything. CC BY-SA, credit plus keep derivatives under the same open license. CC BY-NC, credit plus no commercial use, derivatives allowed. CC BY-ND, credit, no changes, commercial use allowed. CC BY-NC-ND, credit plus no commercial use plus no changes. The most restrictive, basically share the exact file non-commercially. For your collaborative storytelling volume, BYSA is the natural fit. It's the only one that both allows remixing and forces every remix to stay open. BYND would forbid the collaboration entirely, and BYNC would block anyone from ever selling an anthology of the community's work. Thank you for sticking with me. It'll be like one listener, but maybe it'll be 2 in 10 years or 2 years. I didn't end up going to see the status of the war in Iran. My brain reminded me in the middle of reading that, so we were going to do that to close out. But I do want to say, related to figuring this out, and I'm going to read through this, intellectual property, this is how I personally think of it. When a writer sits down to write anything, they're gathering all of the knowledge of every book they've read. In my personal beliefs, we're also pulling down the universal mind and other things that are in the universal consciousness. And does someone deserve to make a reasonable living on their creative projects? Definitely. Do we need to put patents on seeds that have been developed over thousands of years that farmers have carefully crafted in developing traits of these seeds that a corporation can swoop in and apply patents to them? I don't think so. Right now, what's happening in the world is this massive knowledge that's going to, these things that are going to be solved from AI, that a few people are holding companies that are creating them. And It's a big issue right now. The Moonshots podcast is a good one to listen to when they talk about it, and they don't know the answer. Should nothing be worry about patents? Everything's moving so fast. They're talking about a distributive income for AI and other technology companies, so that the commons concept, that a bit of that income can go to everyone. Bernie Sanders is working on that, and they're actively talking about that with the president and the technology leaders. So it's something to think about. And as it relates to this book, because I'm making it with AI, my creative part is how I'm telling them I want the story to go, and that's beautiful, but I want it to be shared. I would like nothing better than someone to put that story Bible into their own AI and say, I want these characters to do this, which is what fan fiction is for the big stories and shows, and that is often illegal because they're making fiction from things that have copyright, and people kind of look the other way because of the way it's used. But that's a perfect example of creativity. I don't know. Scotland was a country with no fences, and everything seemed to work out pretty well. So it's all these fences we've put around everything. I think we need to look at what's working in the commons, in the area of the commons, and how we can apply it to more things. So this book series is definitely going to be open license, and I'll figure out the details, but it sounds like the one I have on it is the right one so far. So we never did look to see what was happening. Why don't we type in real time status update on the war in Iran. So I meant to look up how Reuters is pronounced, because all last podcast I said Reuters. For some reason I've heard that in my mind, but did I make that up? I hope not. So this is the first thing that came up was Reuters News and Media, latest breaking news. 2 hours ago, U.S. seeks Iranian pledge to free up the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. President Donald Trump said the U.S. and Iran had agreed to continue talks despite an escalation of hostilities this week, while also declaring an end to the ceasefire. So we've been on long enough. I'm not going to go into more details. Everyone can watch the news. I just wanted to send a prayer of peace and put my attention on the fact that we're still in this war and many other wars. And I'm just wishing everyone a beautiful week, and thanks for tuning in. Peace.